Hey, it's Jess Sherman here. I'm going to tackle the topic of how to talk to your friends and family, or really anyone, about the diet choices, the food choices that you've made for your kids, especially when they just don't get it and they're not supportive and they don't understand what you're doing because you've put your child on a modified diet. Maybe you've taken out gluten or you've taken out sugar or whatever it is, for whatever reason, for whatever health reason, be it physical health or emotional, mental health, and it's hard to get support. Not everyone understands what you're doing, why you're doing it, why you're going all this trouble. Sometimes you're going to end up, you go into the grandparents' house and they're just like, oh, it's just one piece of cake, or there's a celebration at school and you don't want your kid to be left out. But if they eat these things that are full of things that they're sensitive to, or that are spiking their blood sugar, or that are causing their body stress, that are triggers for them, that they're going to throw a temper tantrum, or they're going to start getting aggressive, or they're going to start getting anxious, or they're going to start peeing in the bed again, or they're going to have nightmares again, or whatever it is for you, whatever you've figured out for your kids. Because foods can be a stressor in so many different ways. So what do you do? What do you do? Do you tell your kids no? Do you make them feel different? Do you get on your high horse and try to educate people and change people's mind? Do you refuse to go to things? Like you refuse to go to the party, or you say no to the birthday party or the soccer match or whatever it is because you just can't handle the food stress, right? Or do you bring your own stuff because your child's different and you just have to accommodate for them? It is a really tough situation for parents. And I have a lot to say about it because I work with parents all over the world who have this same problem. They have made a choice, they've made a decision to improve the health of their kids by shifting up their diet, and they come up with this resistance. And not everyone understands or supports what they're doing. So I created a handout for you, top talking points and scripts that you can use, because it's important that these conversations remain constructive and they don't escalate into conflict and frustration, because ultimately it's your kid who loses out when that happens. So you should find a link to that somewhere here. You can find it at jesssherman.com/p/family if you're watching this somewhere else. You can join our Raising Resilience community as well, so you can get some support there, www.raisingresiliencecommunity.com. What you're doing is huge. It's huge, and it's part of a much bigger cultural shift. I want to just make that clear. I want to just call your attention to that. You're making a cultural shift on a family level, and you're part of a much bigger cultural shift on a bigger national, global level too. That's why this feels so hard. That's why you run up against resistance, because you're doing something a little bit differently. You're choosing to use food to improve the health of your kid, right? And let's just call attention to how amazing that is for a minute. Because right now, as of this recording in 2018, between 50 and 60% of adults are living with a chronic health condition, right? And here in Canada, 4 out of 5 of us are at risk for developing a chronic health condition, right? So these are things like IBS and cancer and migraines and psoriasis and autoimmune disease, depression, anxiety, thyroid disease, heart disease, diabetes, fatigue, all of these things that we know have a dietary component, right? We're in a bit of a health crisis right now because we adults, many of us, never learned how to use food to promote health, right? If we had learned that as children, maybe we wouldn't be here. There are many factors contributing to our healthcare crisis, but imagine, right? If we had learned how to leverage food, we would be in much better shape now as adults. Now, what you're doing, you're taking this on behalf of your children. You are choosing to learn how to use food constructively and strategically to improve the health of your child, whether it's for a physical health reason or it's for a mental and emotional or a learning health reason. Both equally valid, both equally important, right? You're learning how to use food to leverage, you're learning how to leverage food to improve their health. And that is amazing. It's a bold and it's a courageous move, right? And not everybody understands it because they just never learned how to do it, right? And then because of it, they're not very well, you know? So you're going to feel like a black sheep. It's going to feel a little bit hard, especially if you're new at this, right? Especially if you're just sort of starting to take some steps towards learning a little bit more about this. If you're new to this, it's very easy to get gaslighted, right? It's very easy to walk into a conversation full of confidence that you're doing the right thing, and then someone sort of starts to throw you into doubt. They're like, oh, I read a study that X, Y, or Z, and you're just like, oh, really? I didn't know that. Because, you know, you're just starting, you're just testing the waters, and maybe, you know, you don't have the background or the research to support it. It's just something that you want to try, right? It gets easier as you see changes and as you get more comfortable in the kitchen and as you get more knowledgeable, it gets easier. But here's the thing. You have made a strong, bold, courageous decision to support your child, right? To tinker with diet, no matter where you are, right? With your learning curve. And so I see two things often happen when you get into a conversation with someone who is unsupportive or just doesn't get it. One is you just throw in the towel, right? And you just like, okay, whatever. Well, like, I don't want to cause conflict. I don't really know what I'm talking about. And let's just give my kid whatever. I don't care, right? That is not fair. It's not fair to you because you have made a parenting decision. And so it undermines your authority as a parent. And it's not fair to your child because you haven't even started yet. You haven't even started to explore the depth of the connection between what our kids put in our mouth and how they feel and function and behave in the world. And have no doubt that what you're doing with diet has the potential to change the trajectory of their life. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, I'm being totally serious. Because imagine if they could be less anxious, if they could sleep better, if they could have fewer infections, if they could, you know, miss fewer days of school, if they could have more friends because they're less aggressive, if they could get along with their teachers because they're less aggressive, right? Food has the power to do that. I mean, there's a lot of different contributors, but food is the elephant in the room when it comes to this stuff. It's not being talked about nearly enough. And if you leverage it right, it can be a really powerful tool. And so it's not fair for someone to close the door on this before you've even explored it. And that's what happens when you throw in the towel, right? So that's the first thing that I see happening when you get into a conversation where someone is like casting doubt on what you're doing. You throw in the towel and you're just like, okay, I'm just not even going to explore this. The second thing that happens is you get cornered into this having to be the expert, right? People start quizzing you on, you know, well, what are the statistics and where's the research and show me the studies. And that's not fair either because you're not pretending to be an expert. You shouldn't have to, you know, have spent 17 years studying this before you try something out to support your kids. You just want to try something because you know what? Last week, my kid had to stay home for the third time this month because of tummy pain, and I know it was because of his anxiety, and he just couldn't poo, and his eczema started flaring again, so I kept him home from school again, and I had to call in sick from work, and he was sitting on the couch and being aggressive and angry towards me because that's what he does when he's uncomfortable, and I ended up locking myself in the bathroom crying. And something needs to change. Something needs to change for me because I can't live like this anymore, I'm exhausted, and something needs to change for him because he doesn't feel well and he can't function well and he can't be the amazing kid that I know he is in there unless he feels well, right? So this could really change things for them. And I don't think it's fair for someone to ask you to be the be-all expert and research this to death before you try it. because you have to just try it. You just have to see for yourself what happens, right? And I teach people how to try stuff being strategic about it. So you know what you're looking for and you know what you're seeing and you can make sense of it and you can find your next logical step. That's what I do. And I think it's important to be strategic about it rather than just sort of throwing things here and there and seeing what's going to stick, because ultimately that's going to just get confusing because you don't really know what it is you're trying and what it is you're seeing, right? So it is important to stay strategic. But if you've made a decision to take sugar out of your child's diet, for example, just to see what's going to happen, it's not fair for someone to say, well, show me all the studies that tell me that taking sugar out of your child's diet is going to fix the problem. That's insane. You don't have to do that. So I would just, if you find yourself in one of those two situations, to be like, yeah, I know, you're right, sugar doesn't matter, whatever, just give them the stuff. Or you find yourself in the situation of being like, I don't know, I have to go to Google Scholar and I have to find all the studies and I have to become the expert. If you find yourself in those kind of situations, back up, take a breath, and say something like, can you just support me in this? Because I've made a decision. Something needs to change, and I'm going to try this. This is what I'm trying. Because you know what I'm an expert at? I'm an expert in my child. I'm an expert in loving my child. And I just want to help them be healthier so they can feel better and be happier. That's it. You've chosen something, you've chosen a path, you want to give it a try, and you're asking for support. So I hope that makes sense. I want you to understand, if there's something that you take away from this, this blog post, it's that what you're doing is so important. Have no doubt that your decision to improve the health of your child is a good one. And food is an amazing tool for shifting our health. Most people understand that. If you want to change something about your health, take a look at what you're eating. So it's a bold and it's a courageous move on your part, but not everyone gets it because they never learned how to do it. So they don't understand, right? So stay confident, stick to your guns, bring it back to, can we please just love this child and work together at getting them healthier? Can you just support me on that? Because something really needs to change. So download the scripts. I hope you find those useful. jesssherman.com/p/family. If you're watching this somewhere else, if you're on my blog, it should be here somewhere on the page. Download the scripts, the talking points, so you can keep those conversations positive so that you can advocate for your child. That's all for now. Join us at raisingresiliencecommunity.com so we can continue the conversation, and I wish you all the best.